Hey, there we go. All right. Um, just wanted to get a hold of everybody. Talk a little bit about today about this term limit that we have going on. This question of term limits going on in Anago for the alder people, for the mayor of the town, and the question that we have is there's a referendum coming up on April 1st regarding term limits. This will be, I believe, 6 years for the mayor, and looks like 8 or 10 years for the alder people, and they want to make that retroactive. I see a lot of people who say that they're fine with having the term limits, but what they don't want is it to be retroactive. Meaning that anybody who's been there, they don't want it to kick in this. They say 4 years would be fine if we went back 4 years, but 8 years would be too much because we'd lose a good majority of the people. Not this year. It would not eliminate anybody this specific election cycle. So anybody who would be up would have that 2 year window then until the next general or next spring election. The spring elections in our town are every 2 years. That's the way they generally are. I can't say that's going to be everywhere. Everywhere does things their own way. But here it's every 2 years. So um, nobody would be out this year. Obviously, that wouldn't work because you would have no window of opportunity for people to make that determination that that was going to happen. They'd want to run and to have that opportunity to be a candidate. So yeah, that wouldn't work, and that is obviously not the case. So if you wanted to, if that was a worry of yours that we would potentially lose too many people, obviously that's not going to happen. And let's be realistic. One of the reasons that we encourage term limits, I think everybody's spoken at one point or another about wanting term limits for senators, congressmen, whatever the case may be, governors. It just is what it is. A lot of people have spoken about this topic repeatedly, and most people are for the idea of term limits. So inherently, term limits are a good thing. They encourage people to do good things while they're in office because they know they're not going to be there for the rest of their life. There's no putting so much effort into reelection then because you know that you only have so much time anyway. So the way that you would want to stay in office then is by getting things done versus just relying on and this is where the issue of um, humanity comes into play really is that when people go in to vote a lot of the times, especially if it's what they feel as a less consequential office, even though all offices are consequential. Let me repeat that. All elected offices are consequential. There's no incumbency, there's no seat, there's no office, there's no anything that you can elect somebody for has pretty big ramifications tied to it. So don't for a moment think that just because you don't know what that office is or what it does all that it's not relevant or it doesn't matter if you vote the same person back in. We run into this all the time with senators and congressmen is, people say they don't like them, blah, blah, blah. But then every time it comes back to voting for them, they're either extremely uninformed on who the people are who are running against them, or they don't stop long enough to take a moment to think about it and remember that they were upset with all the things that this person who is the incumbent did. And so they just check the same box of the name that they recognize and they just keep going. And that's one of the things that term limits seeks to solve is it's not a form of punishment whatsoever. It's not looking to harm anybody. Having the idea of a term limit means that we just recognize that there are so many people that are potentially very good at this job or have great potential to do great things with these jobs, these offices, that it's really it's kind of like punishing ourselves when we think about it and we go, hey, we just want to keep this one person in there forever, even though we don't necessarily prove the things that they're doing because it's simpler for us once every year or every other year or whatever the case may be to simply check the same box for the same name that we recognize. It's very lazy on the voters' part. And it's also just simple humanity. A lot of people just don't have the time or the presence to take into account all of the things that elected officials do, to pay attention to everything that an office performs. It's a lot of work. It really is, and I get that. Um, so when we talk about this term limit, we have to recognize that there's so many people out there who could do these jobs. I think we've all looked at the jobs that we do or that our bosses do, and we go, this person isn't anything necessarily super special. A lot of people could walk into that job and over time learn that job. And that is to a degree the case with a lot of official duties. There are things that you do have to go and learn, but I'm not saying that it isn't a difficult job to do something in official duty. So anybody who holds an office or has held an office, I don't want you to think that I'm saying that all of our jobs are easy. They are absolutely not. But there are things that a lot of people could learn. And there are more than just a handful of us that could learn to do them very, very well. So it's rather disingenuous of us if we're going to pretend that we are the only ones who could do these jobs to any degree effectively. That's just not the case. And as somebody who's been a leader in a lot of important things in my time, a lot of the best ideas don't come from the top. They come from all the people who work with us and work for us. So it's really important that we take the opportunity to put those term limits out there so that we can have fresh ideas going. Because let's face it, the people in offices, they're not walking around trying to get the opinions or asking all these different people about their ideas. And a lot of times they're hearing ideas and they may, if we're lucky, pay attention to them. But a lot of times they don't. A lot of times they brush off what could even potentially be a really good idea. So it's really important that we have these change in structure, the members that we elect with some somewhat frequency, because that's going to make sure that we do get fresh ideas in there, and that the people who are in there know that with that limited time, that people are going to start looking at even changing. Like, we don't necessarily even have to give them 10 years. If we're already looking at different people and people are going to be combating for that in 10 years, why not, fight for it sooner? Why not get your name out there earlier? Sooner or later, that guy's going to get out. So if that guy's going to be out in 6 years, I could try for his seat in the next election, which would leave him 4 years, and then keep trying to fight for that seat from him during that time, or her. And sooner or later, that person's seat is going to go, and people will have heard my name, and it would be well known by that time. So that gives me a chance to go, I may lose these next 2 election cycles versus this person, but then their term's going to be up, and people will know my name. They'll have more information on my stance, and that way he can't win anymore. And then the other people who are going to be running for it might be new people who you haven't heard of before, and it increases my odds of winning. So what this does is it creates greater contention during the process, during the terms that they are serving, and it makes them feel like, okay, not only do I have to do a better job within my 10 years if I can maintain those 10 years, but I have to make sure that I'm fighting for that job for that time period, which means I have to do the best thing I can at every single term to try to make it better for people. So hopefully that makes sense, that like it's to encourage, we want to encourage people to do the right thing the right way, to not spend any terms thinking like, well, we've got plenty of time, we can always brush that off. We have to incite and encourage leaders to do the best that they can from the first hour of their election, not to go, well, now I have a lifetime seat and I can be lackadaisical about this thing. I can just, take my time, be lazy. I can just rely on incumbency because people once elected me, they're going to keep electing me. And part of it is ego on our part as voters, is that we believe that we elected that person, therefore we are beholden to keep electing that person. Not necessarily for political party, any kind of thing, but because we participated in that. So we're going to double down on that every single time. And a lot of people do that with even with incumbents that they believe are doing a poor job. They'll either vote them in because it's partisanship. A lot of the times they go, hey, this guy's my party. And the only other option now on the ticket is this other dude who's another party that I don't agree with. Even if you might agree with that person's points that are talking about, especially in local politics, because local politics have nothing to do with national political party lines. So At least they shouldn't. So like you can agree with somebody very much on a local level, and people are still going to go, well, yeah, but they're the other party, so I'm just not going to vote for them. I got to vote for my party line. I got to vote for my party guy. And so even though you might hate your guy, you're going to keep voting for him because there's not another option for your party's representation. There's just the other party's representation. So it's an inherent flaw in our system. And term limits help remove that flaw as well. Now, one of the arguments I did see, and I can't remember the fellow's name, and I wouldn't say it anyway because I don't like calling people out or making them feel like they were called out, even if it's not a call out sort of situation. I don't want to have anybody feel like that. One of the things that I heard as an argument was that if we had the retroactive, if we do the retroactive part of this, going back 8 years, that come next election cycle, you'll end up likely replacing, I think it was 70% of the people who are there right now. And they said that's just too much. Well, the thing is, at any election cycle, you could lose 70%. If everybody was up for being replaced, okay. So generally, in a lot of elections like this, you would have a half the seats go up every other year. So right now, you would only potentially, without this going on, you potentially have like half your people that could be replaced. So you're looking at like 50% right there. So it doesn't seem so bad, but that's still technically a lot depending on how you feel about it. So where do we set this limit? How many people is okay to replace, right? Because let's say it was all the people who got replaced were one political party, and that party would go, well, all of my people got replaced. It seems unbalanced now. People will always have a way to say that if I can confine it to certain labels or measures, it's always too much. Let's say we did this without any retroactive notions in it, and we gave them, the 4 years going forward or something to do this. The bottom line is that essentially there would be times when you could have 70-80% of the people being replaced, and you would say, well, that seems like a bit much, right? How do we have our government move forward effectively if we've replaced so many people with new people who may not be effective leaders? Well, you just do. We do all the time in all sorts of seats of government and all sorts of different offices and buildings and businesses. You can have entire boards get swept and all new boards get put in. You have entire managerial staff within structures get completely eradicated, and brand new management comes in, and they have to find their footing and get things going. It's the will of the people. That's really what it comes down to. Is how do you say the people's will isn't correct? You don't. It may not be all the way informed. It may not take certain things into consideration, but it's still the will of the people. And if you think that a community is just going to fall apart just because we replaced a number of people, then that's an issue. My other thought on this would be that 30% remaining of how many people, I don't remember exactly how many aldermen we have in the town. I could look it up probably real quick here. Give me just 1 second. Let's see. Indigo, Wisconsin aldermen list. So I see 9 wards here. So you got 9 alder people in Indigo. You were saying 70%. That would leave 3 people. And 3 people to basically instruct other people on how the processes go. And you still have the planning commissions. You still have other people who are working on other boards that work with them that can help them through things. And you still have the mayor who's going to be able to help them through things. And I really don't think that, it's going to fall apart. That's just not the case. City governance is just, it's at our level, at least. I could see if we were like Chicago or something, but still you would have so many people, and it's really not that difficult to have that situation. So is it a chunk of people? Yeah, you would lose 6 people, have 3 remaining potentially. At the same time, if you think, having a term limit is a good thing, which I think a lot of us do. One, how much time is too much time? At what point does having a term limit, but giving him so much time, seem like, well, what's the point in that anyway? At that point, they might just move or decide that they just didn't want to run anymore. And term limits in a rule became ineffective anyway because it no longer put a constraint on anybody that was, effective enough that it actually mattered because everybody was already getting out before that term, right? So we still have to have one that's effective. We still have to have one that matters. We have to make sure that it's relevant. And if it's a one-time thing, one-off sort of situation, and if we do it at retroactively whatsoever, you're still going to have a point at which you're risking having that turnover. But it's a one-time thing. Potentially, you can still have people every single spring election getting dipped out and dipped in. So, it's one of those things that it could suck once. It could. But how long would it suck? And how much is going forward? In the spring election, you've already got your budget's already done in the fall. So your budget's already set up for that. And then the budget going forward, done by your city administrator, is going to be done next fall. It's going to start getting worked on in summertime. And he's going to be the one who's really directing a lot of that stuff. Your elder people are going to be discussing it with them and with other people who have good knowledge of how the city works and operates and what the prior budgets were, and are going to be able to inform anybody. So it's not like you're going to walk in blind and just be like, no, how much money do we have? Let's give it to the goldfish. You just don't have that that risk there that it was just going to all fall apart. So I'm looking here, and it said in 2023 we had three people running for election. It's only three candidates that would have been fairly fresh. So either they didn't all win, or I'm not sure exactly what the case may be. I don't have all of the information on the how long every single candidate has been there. I don't think there's any site that specifically states. You would have to just interview them, or you can call and ask. Usually your mayor or your older people or the city clerk, and a lot of them will tell you a lot of that information because it's all a matter of public record. So it's not like they're super secret or anything like that. Nobody's trying to keep that information from you. So all of this information is readily available. All you really have to do, for the most part, with a lot of stuff, is just ask. Very little of it is something that you have to specifically, take away from somebody else to get it or pay for it or anything like that. You can just ask somebody. The mayor is going to be up for a switch too, so it's not just your aldermen that are going to have this on there. It's going to be the mayor as well. Yes, I know some people are like, well, why would you want the mayor to change, especially with somewhat frequent, that kind of frequency, the 6-year frequency? Again, because you have fresh ideas. You have the potential to get a mayor in there who is, potentially very, very good at what he's going to be doing. He knows a lot about the different things. He's got a lot of new, fresh ideas. Towns thrive off of fresh ideas. A fresh idea doesn't mean it's going to be an idea that's acted upon solely. It just means that there's potentials that are being added to the pot. Everything great comes from potentials. So let's say we throw out an idea and somebody says, well, I don't like that idea. And you go, well, why don't you like that idea? I kind of thought it was a good idea. I thought this would, what the idea would do. And people say, well, no, here's some of the problems I see with the idea. And next thing you know, you've got this whole conversation about these new ideas and the potentials, potential ills, potential pros. And people are weighing about different interactions and learning about different things that maybe they didn't know about this way or the other way. And they start building a better idea. And with that better idea, they can move forward. Now, that better idea may be something similar to the first new idea. It may be a completely different idea. But in the end, hopefully, you move the town forward in a new direction or in a greater direction or in a faster direction, whatever the case may be. What really kills most towns is stagnation, remaining the same, remaining unchanging, being unwilling to adapt to times as the times change. Because let's face it, um, the world progresses even if your town don't. And if your town does not progress with the world, then your town tends to fall behind. And unfortunately, towns actually do die. If you haven't traveled a lot, you may not know what that looks like or what that is. But it's a very real thing that's very well studied. The deaths of small towns and villages and whatnot. If you've driven through a lot of backcountry roads, some in our state, but especially down in the southern states where the communities are often much poorer. Um, I'm talking more like Alabama and such, Mississippi, Missouri, those areas right there. You find a lot of small towns that died, and what that looks like is that there's literally an entire town where the 95% of the main street is completely desolate. All the buildings are long abandoned. Everything's rusted out. The vast majority of the homes are no longer occupied. Um, it's really weird to drive through these. It's essentially ghost town with like 10 people kind of living there. Usually a little bit more than that, but um, that is what essentially the death of a town is. And those towns, a lot of them had hundreds or thousands of people in them, and they just didn't want to adapt to change. It does happen every now so often that a highway drew a new route past it, and no longer, everybody stopped stopping in that town because it was based on tourism. Um, so it's kind of a hard lesson to learn is that you don't want to be um, a town where people stop while they're on their way to somewhere else. Uh, it works while the traffic is going through your town, but if there's ever something that encourages traffic to not go through your town anymore, or find a better route, or simply not stop because they were able to stop earlier or go longer, whatever the case may be, that can have a huge impact on your town. So wanting to create an economy in your local community based on tourism can be great for a time period, but your town essentially has to become more than that in the long term. And Anago is one of those towns. We have a lot of tourism that goes through here, and we've recently started doing better on finding ways to get tourists to come here. And that's been a good thing for our economy. What we really have to do for Langlade County and for Anago is to continue to find ways to get people to come here versus passing through here and potentially stopping here. So we keep looking at ways to do that, and I think getting new people constantly, getting fresh eyes on it constantly, especially as the years change and the times change, is going to help us continue to work on that, continue to bring new ideas, continue to speak out sometimes when people introduce things that maybe aren't um, potentially good for those things. So it's going to be good to have those new ideas out there. It's going to be good to have new competition out there. It's good to have term limits because it will create more interest and more, hopefully, ownership of the voters. I want the voters in anything to feel like they own a chunk of the accomplishments that people are doing, and that they have an investment when people aren't doing something great, not to just simply vote against them, but to learn about the other people who might be running against them, not just one person or the other person, but as many other people as they can. It would be really great, I think, if we had a bit more of an investment into the individuals within politics, and to acknowledge that on the local level. Partisanship really shouldn't exist. There's a reason why when you run for an office in a local election, you have to sign paperwork that says um, you're not doing putting so much money into your campaign. If you do, you have to annotate all the funds that you put into your campaign and where those funds came from. And why a lot of times you don't really want big money coming up from state or national parties to be putting a ton of money into your local elections, because unfortunately what that typically means is that they have to agree, be it a handshake or verbal agreement, but it's one that, trust me, they're going to be held to. that they have to agree to perform certain things or to influence certain things in a way that would benefit that party at large down the line. And that's just not a good way to run things. When you hire somebody to be you elect somebody to be your mayor, you elect somebody to be your alderman for your ward, your section of the city, to have your voice for the people in your city. You expect those people to be doing things for you that benefit your city, that benefit your children, that benefit your neighborhood. And let's face it, these larger interests, they don't care about your town. They don't care about you. They don't care about your kids. They don't care about any of that. They don't care if you guys get a new Piggly Wiggly or whatever the case may be. They don't care about that. That's why it's really important for local elections to really have the understanding that it's not about a party. When it comes to local elections, it's really just about the individuals and whether or not they care about their neighbors, they care about their town, they care about their community. Because those are the things that make these people invested in doing the right thing for you. They're going to see all the taxes that come in and they're going to want to say, hey, how do we fix this? We just had a school referendum. The taxes went up partially because of the school was put onto that, and partially because your property taxes, a lot of your home valuations went up pretty dramatically. So with both of them happening at the same time, it was a severe blow. So now as the county administrators and as town board members, you have to look at like, how do we figure out how to lower our levies so that we can hopefully reduce our tax burden on our constituents. We may not be able to make the market cheaper for your homes. Maybe that's an option, but I don't think it is. So how do we reduce our expenditures so that our levy is lower, so that the amount that you have to pay in taxes then is lowered from that? Can we do that? Is there something that we can do where we can do that where we don't harm our programs that are absolutely necessary, that are helping you in other ways? So we have to look at that going forward. And that's what you want from these people. You want these people to be looking at how do we help run our town effectively and to reduce the burdens that slimed into us last year. And that should be things that you really, really want addressed. Nobody wanted to take responsibility. A lot of people ducked around the questions about the school taxes and the school money going onto the things, and how everybody's home went up in price, and there was a lot of pointing fingers and statements that were coming from this person to that person. Nobody wanted to take responsibility for it. They really didn't, and they didn't want to explain anything. I really didn't care for that. To me, that was a huge cop out. There was a lot of stating that, well, we did it this way, and that's allowed. Well, while it's allowed, it also creates issues, and that issue just hit everybody in the backside. So we need to look at, like, why did we go with the bare minimum that we could legally get away with, that seemed to have a great deal of harm financially to our citizens, and may very well have the impact of making some of our people lose their homes. Because let's face it, a lot of our people live paycheck to paycheck. And if you're a new homeowner these days, it's very difficult. A lot of times you were getting mortgages that you could afford, yeah, but you weren't going to be able to save much money in addition to paying all your bills, paying your mortgage, getting your groceries, paying for gas and everything else. And now with the cost of things going up again, that really doesn't feel good to know that you are going to have to bite the bullet on another $100 to $200 to $250, $300, whatever the case may be for your home every single month. That's really hard pill to swallow, especially when a good deal of our town doesn't necessarily work in our town limits. They may work on farms, they may work in factories, they may work in other places where they have to drive a ways to get to. So that really hurt a lot of people, and we need to keep that in mind when we look at this, is that a lot of people are hurting right now. So maybe we need fresh blood to look in this and go, how the hell did we let that happen? How the hell can we get people in here who make sure that never happen again? Nobody answered nor wanted to answer us with a real answer that gave us all of the information, um, they all wanted to point the finger. Nobody wanted to take ownership. That's not leadership to me. Real leadership is I may not know the answer, but I tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and find the damn answer. And I'm going to get you that answer. And I don't care how many people feel bad about it when I get you that answer. I'm going to find all of the information possible. And if people are obfuscating that or trying to be less than completely transparent about it, we're going to have issues coming up. And you should. If it's going to cost you another, couple $100,000 a year, you should have a lot of issues with finding out that, because everybody at first at the school, and it wasn't just the school, your home valuations definitely did have an impact on how much was taken out because of the referendum, but it was going to impact your property taxes bottom line anyway, substantially. So we can't pretend that it was just that. And people, I've had people that tell me that they were speaking to people at their bank or people at these different offices and businesses, and everybody had an opinion on whether or not it was truly hitting it. And so I did make an Excel spreadsheet, and I did share that at one point on Anago Information. It should still be available. It's a link to my Google Drive because it's a spreadsheet you can do online. You fill in 3 boxes that are colored blue. There's instructions on it, as a matter of fact. But you just fill in the 3 boxes, and it'll tell you how much was taken up from the referendum, and it all lines up with the 95 cents per dollar situation. And it all breaks it all down for you so you can understand and see that the school money did come out on our taxes this year, the 2024, 2025 year. So it just did. It hit your taxes. So your home valuations went up, and you got hit with the school referendum all in 1 year. And it really sucked, but it's going to hit us again next year. I mean, it's not like any of those things go away. Your home's still going to be the same value. The school referendum is still going to be there. So it's not like it's just going to disappear. And it's going to be very disingenuous. But the good thing is that now you know that the school referendum was on it, and that that's not going to be something in addition next year that's going to hit you and go even higher. So at least you understand and know that, hopefully now. But yeah, these people who didn't want to just find out and give you an answer, or wanted to point the finger and blame somebody else, or, there was way too many questions in the community. There's still a lot of questions in the community, and I don't like that. I think that's terrible. It's irresponsible. That's not what leaders do. Leaders look at you and say, even if they don't know the answer right now, they're going to tell you they're going to get the answer for you. And they should be friggin' honest with you. There's no leader that has ever been worth a damn that's afraid of just letting you know that they don't know something right now. Like, oh, this happened. I wasn't a part of it. Therefore, I do not know exactly all the details on it. That's simple. And I think that people can respect that. If you weren't a part of something and you weren't on top of that at the time because it just wasn't your job to be so, I don't think most people are going to be like, oh, you're a terrible person. Nobody cares. Nobody really is going to be upset with you for not knowing things that you weren't a part of at the time as they were being set up, as they were being worked. They might give you more accolades if you knew it was coming and you were looking into it and you're trying to stay on top of it the whole time. And you do know, but I don't think they're going to fault you for necessarily not knowing instantaneously or not being, well versed in it well ahead of time. And there's, that's reality. And it's cool. It's people. But to just point fingers or to pretend you do know when you don't know, all of that, just don't be that guy. Just say, hey, I'm going to find out. Let me look into this. Let me ask everybody I can. I was emailing people. I was calling people. I was trying to find out every answer I could. I want to appreciate Mr. Bardo for giving us a presentation at the county board meeting that helped a bit. I was able to have another jumping point for a lot of the stuff that I did, including my Excel spreadsheet that I shared. That confirmed all the information, that allowed people to just enter in their information and to confirm that the school referendum was on there and that it was the appropriate amounts. So demand better of your people. That's a real answer here. It's just to demand better of your community. Term limits are fine. I think retroactive is fine as well. If we have a larger number of people who leave office because they've served that time, then that's okay. Hopefully, it'll be the last time that happens. Um, but realistically, if you have term limits and people get voted out while other people are hitting the end of their term limits, you could still end up with that. You could still absolutely end up with that. You could end up with that in a number of years. Um, People ending their term limit and then other people just getting voted out on that year. It can happen. So it's a risk you run in government that a lot of things can happen. And when you're in a smaller town, it can happen more frequently because you just have less people, less wards. The only really way to make it less of a risk would be to have more older people by creating more wards, by having each ward be smaller. And then you could have more diversity in that, just in the fact that you would just have more people. And you'd be able to spread out the terms of when each ones are elected, and then have a lower risk of that happening. So that's an option. I don't know that it's a good option or it's a necessary option, but the bottom line is just that if people did great, okay, let's say I was going to be an older person, right? If I was going to be an older person and I wanted to run and I did a great job and I win and I get to the end of my term limit, I make it all the way to the end of my term limit. I never lose an incumbent election. For those who may not understand the term incumbent, I think most of us do, but for those who don't, it's fine. An incumbent is just somebody who's currently sitting in that seat and they're running for re-election, versus being somebody who would be new to that seat running for election, who has not held that seat. So that's all an incumbent is, just somebody who's currently in office and they're running to be re-elected to that same office. But so I make it all the way there. And I know that I cannot win this next election. But I still feel in my heart like, and this is who I am as a person, honestly. So if I ran and I did a great job and I really loved what I was doing, and I couldn't run anymore because I reached the limit of terms, and I would still want to be involved. Whoever got my seat, I would want to talk to them. Maybe at meetings, maybe after meetings, I could talk to them. Maybe I could set up opportunities to speak with them. With a lunch or something like that, and I could give them guidance. They could ask me questions. They could ask other people's questions. And what a lot of people don't know is that there's actually there's meetings across like state and county levels where you can speak to other older people. You can speak to other for myself, county board members. So there's a lot of opportunities to get information, to learn things. But as somebody who's run, just because I hit my term limit doesn't mean I have to stop serving. I just can't serve in that capacity as an official. I can still serve my community by being able to interact with those officials, being able to offer those officials advice, going to meetings and being outspoken at those meetings about things, making my voice still heard as a citizen, and still being able to interact with the other citizens and being able to talk to them about things that are going on or how I feel about things. I may not be able to vote in an official seat capacity, but I can still make my voice heard, and I can still speak to other people and help educate them and help encourage them to make their voices heard. You don't have to hold a public office seat for that to happen. So hopefully, this creates a new lifeblood and a new energy in our community. I think that it will. I can't tell you how to vote, and I don't want to tell you how to vote. I want to inform you of what I see and what the options are and what the potentials are. I can't say that the outcomes of any vote are going to be one way or another. There's still obviously the human factor. There's still obviously the people who are going to run for those seats. The burden is on them, and the burden is on us as voters and as officials to do the right thing, to try hard, to do the right thing, to work with others, to be involved in elections, to be involved in educating the community, whether we're voters or not. we need to energize and be a little bit more prominent members of our community. Um, and it's difficult now that so much is online. It's a lot more difficult to, I think, be members of our community. It's very easy to be um, online and just kind of ignore actually interacting with our community in a more human sense. But you know, go out on the trail every now and again. The trails that run through the town, run through the county. Go out on the trails. There's lots of people on the trails. When you're out shopping, don't be afraid to say hi to people. Visit all the different events going on. There's so many different events that are going on at the fairgrounds. There's events that are going on throughout the town. Different businesses hold all kinds of different events. Check them out. Get to meet other members of the community. Get energized. And the county board and the town board, they post when their meetings are. Hop down to meetings. You don't have to be anybody significant or special, other than just a member of the county. Um, let's face it, man. If you're from Langley County, you're from Antigo, uh, you have a right to speak at these meetings. You're a great person. We want you to give your voice. We've been getting a few more people here and there at these meetings, and it's great to see more bodies, more faces. Um, and I'm gonna be honest. A lot of you don't necessarily know what's happening at every meeting, and I will ask questions about some of these things as they are talking about them, because we get packets, we get all this information ahead of time. So they kind of gloss over all the details that are in these referendums and these policies and ordinances and everything. They kind of gloss over them when they put them up for the vote. So when we do the discussion portion of it, a lot of times I will ask them to iterate a little bit more about it. It's not for me. I'm very well versed. I have great comprehension, so I don't necessarily need to know much more about a lot of these different things. Sometimes I do, because you can be as well versed as you want to be, but they're still going to be talking about things that maybe you've never interacted with before. You've never broached those subjects or been involved in these fields. So yeah, there's definitely going to be things that I don't necessarily know about. Same with you guys. Um, so I ask questions because I want them to illustrate for myself sometimes, and often for the people who are there, who are citizens, so that they know what's going on. They shouldn't have to try to look at one of these referendums or one of these ordinances or one of these policies and see like 8 million whereases and just be as lost in the sauce as so many people are. They get very confusing that way, and I completely understand and respect that. So I do ask them to break it down and give us a gist or ask about specifics, because I want people listening in the audience to be able to hear that and be able to understand what that is. That way, if they hear that breakdown and they have something that they wanted to opine, they would have that opportunity to do so. They would have to feel lost and afraid to say something because they don't want to look dumb, having to ask does this mean. um, don't be afraid to ask. If somebody doesn't ask what something is and they say this is a referendum, and you wanted to ask what that referendum is, um, or what that ordinance or whatever the case may be is, you can ask. You can ask them to state what that ordinance is, so that they let you guys know. So because we're there as your representative, but we don't always know exactly what every single person in our community feels like. So we can try to represent you as best we can, but the best way for us to get that representation out there and to do the things that you guys want us to do is for you guys to show up or to call us or to write us or whatever the case may be and let us know. And so if you're there at that meeting, you can ask what that's about and you can make your voice heard, and you can look your person that's supposed to represent you right in the face and be like, hey man, this is how I feel about it. And then they can hopefully make a better informed opinion based on what you feel about it. Or we can maybe get more information and then we can have a dialogue and we can go forward from there. But that's what it is. Term limits can be a very great thing. I think it can do a lot of good for our communities. I don't think that there's anything that can happen by having a retroactive period of 8 years. I don't think there's anything that can happen, in 2 years that couldn't happen in 4, 6, or 8 years. Those potentials are still always going to be there. how do you say when enough is enough? How do you make that determination? Um, Obviously, we have some people in there who are doing a great job, they're wonderful people. Um, but how many other wonderful people would like to also run? Would also like to do that job? Could potentially be doing other great things. So you have to keep in mind that you always have great people waiting in the wings to help run your communities, who want to be involved in running your communities. And any single time that you bring in new blood, you're bringing in the people who back those new people as well. You're getting them energized again, and reinvested in their community and the people who are running their community, and they feel like their voices matter again. So this isn't just about putting different butts in the seats. This is about making the community feel like they are also there, that they're also sitting there, that their voices matter, that they still have power in their community to, as far as their government is concerned, that their voices still matter to those officials, and they should feel like that. So, um, I'm gonna tell you straight out, I'm voting yes on this one. I do think that it's a good idea to have term limits, and I don't want to sit here and put it off for another 6 to 8 years on whether or not there should be term limits. And I do want to say that I don't think it's appropriate that, and it's a good thing that it was put through as a petition, because that's the only reason it's going up as a referendum, because the board itself voted not to have term limits. Well, yeah, anybody in that position who wants to stay in that position pretty much indefinitely is going to say that we shouldn't have term limits. That if people want us out, they can just vote us out. I've heard that argument from incumbents in Congress. I've heard that argument from incumbents in the Senate, and it's not a good argument, because we all know that incumbents typically can hold their seat for lifetime, just because people inherently vote for incumbents. It doesn't necessarily mean that they approve of the incumbents or like what the incumbents are doing or are enthusiastic about that vote. It just means that it's the easy way out for a lot of people, and we need to put a stop to that. We need to put the power back with the people and the responsibility back with the people. And I know it's a big word, responsibility, and I know that it makes people nervous. But yeah, the responsibility has to be with us. We have to take responsibility for our vote. And every single time it comes time for that election, we should be a little bit more responsible, a little bit more diligent about how we look into the people that we're voting for, and what we want from those people. So I'm going to try to always be as honest and real with you guys as I possibly can. I don't really have anything to hide. My life is not super fantastic. It's not super boring. It just is what it is. I haven't done anything like super crazy evil or super crazy. I've never stolen the moon. I don't really have any like super crazy convictions or anything like that. I'm just a dude. So I'm going to be as honest with you guys as I can always. I look into a lot of things. I do a lot of research. And I try to help people understand things. That's my goal. It's always my goal, is to try to help people understand anything and everything as much as they can, and I will always try to find the answers for you guys, because whether or not you vote for me another term, I really don't care. My goal is that hopefully you're at the end of the day, you're just happy with the results that you choose, that you get as much information as possible about each and everything that's going on, and you can make the best choices that you feel for you. And whether or not I agree with you guys on things politically doesn't really change anything for me. I'm still going to try to fight for you. I'm going to try to fight for the things that you want. I had a gentleman who we very much disagree on a lot of political things. But when he talked to me about an issue that he was having within the county, I looked into it immediately, did some research. He talked to me a lot about a lot of the information. I think we spoke on the phone for maybe 2 hours that day. It was a long conversation. And I went to the meeting. It's a whole committee that I'm not on. So I'd never participated in that one before. Gave me a new opportunity for that. But I went to that meeting and I stood up and I made my voice heard and gave some ideas that I thought were pretty reasonable. And we were able to leave that meeting with knowing that things were going to move in a different direction, that they were going to be getting more voices heard, that a lot of people are going to be looking at things and trying to make some changes that really levied the voices of the loggers in our county, and gave the smaller loggers hopefully a better voice, a more recognized voice in the community, and hopefully made everything a little bit more fair and balanced for them. Um, because at the end of the day, I'm serving my people. It doesn't matter if I agree with you on national political things or anything else. All that matters is that you speak to me about what's going on, what your concerns are, and I will look into them and I will try to address those concerns. And if they're genuine concerns, I will go to whatever meetings I got to go to. I will fight hard for you. I will make sure that whatever your concerns are heard. So that's what all of us should be doing. That's what all your reps should be doing. It shouldn't matter what their politics are. Our politics are our own. When a person's political ideologies, that's their personal philosophies. When we become representatives, we agree that our personal philosophies are still going to be a part of us, but that all the philosophies of all the people that we represent also matter to us more than our own. And our job becomes looking at all of them and all the things that they believe and all the things that they feel and all the ways that things that we're doing are impacting them, and going, how do we make this all the best possible answer for as many people as possible at every single point? And so that's important. That's what becomes more important. To be a leader of your community is to be somebody who's willing to sacrifice them and their personal philosophies for the community. It doesn't mean that you're elevated to shout your personal philosophies down other people's throats and to look down on everybody else. That is absolutely not the point of leadership. Leadership means that you are the one in the front. You take the first bullet, whatever the case may be. You are the one who's going to bear the brunt of the damage, and you're going to make sure that everybody else is served. So that's my thoughts on the whole thing. Ran a little bit longer than I had intended initially, but if you watched through the whole thing, that's cool. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. You can message me on Facebook. A number of people have. As always, thank you guys for messaging me, for asking questions. I appreciate the opportunity to answer questions and to illuminate you guys a little bit, illustrate what I can. And don't be afraid to ask other people as well what their opinions on things are too. I'm sure that there's, every county board member that I know is probably more than happy to answer questions on this. And they've probably got their own opinions on it as well, or their own insights as well. So, this is just mine. I figured so many people asked me that I may as well do this and hopefully answer as many people's questions as possible, as quickly as possible. And this you can watch and view in your own time, and hopefully that gets you the answers that you're looking for. All right. Have a good one. And